Right. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending this session of the Tribal Summit, the Office of Communities, Tribes, and Environmental Assessment. I want to introduce our director, Jonna Polk. Many of you know her from her previous work, and she introduced herself yesterday, but I want to let Jonna give her the floor to do some opening remarks for our session.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here and join you today. I look forward again to the day that we can all be together. And for those of you who your families have been touched by COVID-19 in the last year, definitely my prayers and thoughts go out to you and your families. And we are going to all come out of this and be better for it. So we'll just move on from there. But I look forward to seeing you all again soon. I shared with another group that Sarah Hill with Cherokee Nation told me one time that I am a hugger. So I miss hugging everybody. So virtual hugs out to everybody. I know that Randy has a lot on the agenda, and I look forward. I thank you so much to all of the folks who volunteered to present and all of the great information that's going to be shared. Really appreciate that, and look forward to hearing everything and learning. And thank you all for your attendance. Thanks, Randy.
Thank you, Jonna. I also want to let Gerardo Costa, our staff director, if he wanted to say a few words. Gerardo, any comments?
Randy, I think Gerardo may have also been on another meeting at the same time. So,
okay. Well, we will jump. So I'm going to go ahead and give a brief overview on a couple items that our office handles: tribal consultation and GAP grants. And I would like some feedback on some of the process items that we work on. So I hope Chelsea or Karen have my slides. I just have 5 slides for this morning, and then I'll hand it off to Ira. He's going to talk about EPA tribal environmental plans and any items that we want to talk about related to GAP. So again, I'm giving tribal affairs update today. Next slide. So just some thoughts on some facts on tribal consultation. So in FY 2020, we had 12 tribal consultation engagements. So far this year, in the first, 6.5 months of the fiscal year, we've had 6 tribal consultation engagements. I know Air mentioned a couple of those yesterday. The Transwestern Pipeline is one that's is ongoing right now. We've had some other ones for permits. Every 6 months, we do a semi-annual projection of tribal consultation opportunities. Our next one is due to our headquarters office by April 21st. That's when we also provide success stories on our tribal consultation. So we reach out to our programs to see what might be in the queue for consultation upcoming. All this information is located on EPA's Tribal Consultation Opportunities Tracking System. It's called TCOTS. So if you ever want to see what's being consulted on, not just in our region, but nationally, you can go to the TCOTS database, and it's available for everyone to see. My first question to folks today, and Chelsea, I know they can respond back in the chat, or I don't know if you can give them the mic, but we've been doing a lot of communication via email since the pandemic started, especially to tribal leadership. Before the pandemic, we would send out hard copy letters. Some of those letters would be, I would say most of them would be mailed to the tribal environmental directors, a heads up that this is coming to your leader. But with the pandemic now, and we're not in the office, a lot of our staff is sending direct letters via email to tribal leadership. We were able to work with many of you to get your tribal leaders' email. but I just wanted some feedback on how that's going on your side. I think it's going okay, from what I see, but it does kind of every now and then when I see a staff member uh, uh, email a tribal leader directly, I just kind of is, I just kind of want to double check and see how our communication is going. I do know that, while we're out of the office, we have to get that communication to your tribal leadership, and we just can't mail those hard copy. We have had a couple of executive assistants for some leaders say, we don't want to give the tribal leader email out, so we would prefer that email come through us. And I'm pretty sure that's just not for EPA. It's probably all email for the leader. But I just wanted to get a sense of that, if that's working for folks, if there's anything we need to look at. Do you have some concerns about, those leaders coming from, those communications coming directly to your leader and CCDU? Any thoughts on that? And maybe that's not a concern at all. So I'll monitor the chat to see if there are any questions on that too. So I will monitor the chat. Chelsea, if you can help me out, if I can get any feedback on that question.
No problem.
Okay. So let's see. Chelsea, do you see any feedback? I don't think I see any yet.
I don't see anything in the chat box that's any questions, but I do see one from Gerardo and said he was muted, but I don't see him on my panelist list anymore.
Okay.
I'll look and see if he's in the attendee list again.
Okay. I see Jennifer's comment that the process works for her.
Yep. I'm seeing other ones come in and says process seems to be working fine for now.
Okay. And let me say, if you don't want to put anything in the chat, but just want to send an email to Mark and me, please feel free to do that. Again, I have, we've gotten the leader emails on our attendee list, or this contact list that we carry, that we maintain. And okay, yeah, see Tabitha is directly the tribal leader as long as the director is CC. We will definitely work to get that, keep that going. So yeah, if it seems like we've been noted or told that if it needs goes to executive assistant. That was Jennifer's comment. It works better for us. Paper hard copies get lost in the shuffle. Great comment. So yeah, please keep the feedback coming, and even after this session, we'd really just like to know how this communication is going. We're going to be, probably doing this for a few more months. Hopefully we'll be back in the office soon, but, it's just something that I just want to touch base on, because I know it's something that we've been doing since the pandemic started to get those, that communication directly to leadership. So I'll move on to the next slide.
Hey, Randy, can
Yes.
you hear me?
Yes, I can, Gerardo.
Okay, good. Thank you. Finally, I was able to join. I'm so sorry. This, sometimes you're technically savvy, sometimes you're challenged, and it gets you one way or another. I can do the brief remarks now if you want me to, or you can wait until later.
Please do, Gerardo. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, and good morning, everyone. And again, forgive my technical challenges this morning, but I think we're gonna have a very exciting summit coming up. Today we're kicking off, and then we're continuing this for the next few weeks up until April 29th. And there's some great topics, and I want to make sure that we say big thank you to all the staff at EPA Region 6 for their participation and their putting together these great topics for the Indian Pueblos and tribal nations and all the partners attending this summit, so that we can get this information out to all the needed information. And then, I'm looking forward to the moment that we can do this face-to-face again. And this is just the way that we can do it now. And we use technology the best we can, and this is the best available technology. And so we thank those that are hosting this event and helping us in getting this through, so we can put all this into one setting. And again, thank you, and I'm looking forward to continuing these discussions. Thank you, Randy. Back to you.
Thank you, Gerardo. Thank you. I did see a note from one of my team members asking, "Hey, are you saying we're coming back in a few months?" I have no inside information. Just just hopeful one day we'll get back soon. But again, like Gerardo says, we just never know. Just want to make that clear. No inside information on me when we get back to the office. So I wanted to just kind of go over a grants outlook. I know we discussed this briefly yesterday at the RTOC meeting. So as it was mentioned yesterday, we have an allocation this year of a little over $7.5 million. When I was looking at the data from 2010 to now, that is probably the third highest amount that I saw. We had a little over 7.5 million about 4 or 5 years ago. And in FY12, we actually had 7.7 million allocated to the region. But the last 12 years, this is our third highest total. We are funding 6 multi-year grants, and we are funding 17 performance partnership grants this year, the totals I saw. That's probably down from a little bit. I think the high we've had have been 20, what we call PPGs. So we've had some tribal partners move away from those, but we still have PPGs make up about a quarter of our grants to our tribal partners. And just let me say this, and I should have said this to the start. Thank you to all the tribal partners. I know that you have been impacted greatly by the pandemic, but you've adapted and worked through, not just in GAP, but all of the EPA grants. And we couldn't do this work without you. You are our partner, on a government-to-government basis. We are keeping track of our award process through what we call EPA's Lean Management System. And in tracking grants, we actually increased the award of grants by the grants deadline. We did 43 by the grants deadline in 2019. We actually bumped it up to 54 last year, a 25% increase. And that could not have been done without our tribal partners. So a big kudos to you. Thank you. I know you're still working through the pandemic and what's going on. So again, we couldn't do without you. You're our partner on this, again, on a government-to-government basis. I just want to say a shout out to my team too. Alexa Olson, Selena Gomez, Jay Harris, Mark Allen, Ira Hyatt, and Curtis Hicks. Couldn't work with a better group of folks. Many of them seasoned, all of them willing to work with all of our tribal partners, and just a big shout out to them. And I know the tribal partners appreciate their work. And I just want to say a shout out to our grants management office. They're also one of our big partners in this. With Chris Watkins, who started last year, maybe it's 2 years now. Chris and his team, Kenny, Mary, Danelle, and then the folks that work on the other grants. We couldn't do without grants management too. They are such an integral part of what we do. And I just want to say a shout out to them too. So next slide. Here's some numbers from our allocations. I looked these up last night. As you can see in FY 2012, we had almost a little over 7.7 million. If you look at this chart, actually in 11 and 12, we had some very high numbers, 7.9 million, almost close to 8 million. As you can see, in the last 4 years, those numbers have gone down. 7,260,000 is kind of the number I see, the magic number I see. That gets 110,000 to all the grantees in our to the 66 tribal grantees. If they came in, that would give them 110,000. So this year we had 7.5 million. Next slide, please. The GAP funding announcement, we discussed it yesterday. After funding all the, so let me just kind of go back. So we look to fund all of our grantees first, tribal partners, our tribal consortia, and then multi-year grants. And so after funding all those that came in, we had probably a little over $350,000 left to allocate. So I instructed my team members to reach out to folks and through their work with our tribal partners to submit a list of projects to us, to me and our leadership to fund. And they have been doing that and working through that process. So I think we have enough projects to expend the $350,000 now, but you just never know if we're going to get more funds. I mean, it never fails. We're about done for the year awarding stuff, and then somebody drops out, or we get some money comes in from a grant that was closed that we didn't expect. So if you have a project that you believe is really a priority. I know all the work is a priority, but you want to submit something to our project officers, please send that to them now, and I'll send an email out. Again, and this is part of my discussion today. I like to get to is, so every year we have extra money after we do this award process. I mean, it never fails. We'll have somebody not come in, something will happen, and so what we do is we go back and just look and work with our tribal partners to see what's out there that could be funded. A few years ago, we went back out after having some money available. We asked everybody to submit an application for 3,000 or 4,000 more, and that process just did not work. I mean, it just really impacted our process of grants. So I definitely don't want to do that again. We're trying to impact the burden on the least amount to folks. And so I know a lot of folks don't want to rework their grants, but I do want to, get some feedback on how we should be doing our funding announcements. Right now, we set a floor level. This year was 115,000. We try to guess what the best floor level will be as we start these grants, and sometimes we do a good job, or we're going to expend all the money, and we're trying to use multi-years more so that we can expend the money there. But should we go to a funding announcement that has a range where folks could submit projects from 100,000 to, say, between 75,000 and 175,000, or 100,000 and 200,000, and we could look at a list of projects there? I mean, I'm really open to that. I would like some feedback. I know that's been done in the past in this region, probably before I got here. I think it's done in other regions. I will say, if we get a whole bunch of folks come in for 200,000, there's a likelihood that probably most of them wouldn't get funded, but we probably would see more projects out there that we might not see already. So just some feedback on that. What are folks' thoughts on, having more, instead of just saying, here's the floor, come in at 115 or 125 or 130? Any feedback on allowing just like a range of funding levels, coming in? I'll take some feedback in the chat. And again, if you just want to send that feedback to me or Mark or your project officer, please do. We're always looking to improve our process in this. And again, I looked at some data from FY12 when we had, you saw the numbers where we had this money come in. We had the ceiling level at 115. We had to come back out and ask folks to send in more money. Get more applications in for this extra funds that we had available. And it was it was interesting. We didn't have a lot of folks come back and want, to come in for extra funds. I think they were like, is it really worth the work to do that? So it's kind of, I know everybody has a different situation, but any feedback on how, if we should alter our process, if we set even a higher, maybe just a floor ceiling, because I think what we would like to do is have a floor where, that if you submit that application, you pretty much should get funded at that floor level. I mean, we're trying to, again, not have folks have to redo their work plans and budgets. So I did see a question from Lily. Let's see. I see James. So Chelsea, do you have, can you bring up Lily's question?
Yeah, hold on just a second. Let me open it in Word. I'll have to copy and paste it into Word. Do you want me to read it off, Randy, or do you want me to actually show it?
Oh, you can just read it off.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so Lily says, you actually got a couple other ones. Let me go up to it. We have one from Jennifer with Muskogee Creek. And she asked if there are any discussions on updating the consultation process. It appears it was last done in 2015. I think it would be worth updating with clear-cut guidelines. The notification phase section is a particular concern for me, as it states tribes will be notified at least 30 days preceding the comment period. I would love to see how that was followed with documentation that it was followed.
Yeah, so great, Jennifer. I know that we have a list of comments in from the consultation that just ended on consultation. I can't remember from the comments if relooking the 2011 consultation plan was part of the discussion. Can you still hear me, Chelsea? My screen went blank. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Yeah, I can still hear you.
Okay. Yeah. So I will reach back out, Jennifer, if there's any thoughts and see where we're at on that. And that was Jennifer at Muskogee Creek, right? Let me write this down.
Yes, and then I have a couple people asking why they can't see what attendees are putting in the chat box. That's just one of the functions. No one can see what's in the chat box except the panelists and the hosts. I can share that information later. Lily has asked, will EPA ever set a cap on IDC? I know some programs set limits. When doing my GAP grant, by the time you do salary and IDC, it doesn't leave much funds to work with. Thanks.
Yes, great question. And yeah, so we've actually asked our headquarters office. We had a session on IDC internally, and from what we've been told, that the grants that GAP falls in, we can't set a limit on IDC. There are some EPA grants that have limits on IDC and other items. Like I think brownfields doesn't allow like administrative costs, but those are set statutorily. And with GAP, we can't do that. We can't set a limit on that. Your tribal nation can do that, on their side, but we just can't set a limit on IDC for GAP. Or I think I think for 106 too, there might be some statutory limits on administrative for 319, but GAP is something we can't do. And it brings up another question. We're going to try to reach out to discuss internally, and I have reached out to the business center in Sacramento about talking to us, just EPA folks about IDC and learning more about that. Would that be something that tribal partners would like just to kind of have maybe at the next RTalk or a session on that? Because I'm always interested on how IDC works, but I don't really know what the feedback on that, or do you kind of rely on your accounting offices to do that? So, just a thought there. I have reached out to Sacramento. I think we are going to have them talk internally to us to kind of learn more about IDC and where we go with that. Because again, Lily, we've had kind of the same questions too. Can we have caps on IDC? Because I will tell you, we've seen the highest IDC I've seen, and it was just last year, 75%. So you look at that, and a GAP grant comes in at 100,000, and half of it's gone already for can't do program work, and it's just something we have to live with. So it does raise some other questions. Those folks were higher IDC. Should we add more funds to their grants so they can do the same amount of program work that a tribal partner with a lower IDC has to encounter? So it just brings up a lot of issues. Again, tribe by tribe, but we could work to see if we could get the Sacramento Center on maybe on an RTalk call or a training call, or maybe in July, or I know they're pretty busy, but we could try to work with that. So
okay, Randy, you got several other questions.
Okay.
James Williams just kind of made a comment. At 115K, we are limited on our projects for the tribe because our reservation is so large and we have a large number of tribal members.
Great.
Go ahead, Randy.
A good comment, James. I will say this, and again, this is one of the what I call philosophical discussions. And I think it was mentioned at the RTalk meeting yesterday. God, when was it? I wish Mark was on because he has more historical, he knows this. I think at the 2010 RTalk or 2009, our tribal partners asked us to ask our office to keep the GAP funds level. So we followed that. We have followed that. I'll be honest. We heard the RTalk in 2009, 2010, and had worked to keep, for the most part, that floor level, what I mentioned. We have had folks throughout the year, and I will say recently, ask us, we're a larger tribe. We have more members. We may have more pollution sources. Why aren't you, allocating funds using different factors than just straight across the board? So those are questions that we're thinking about. I will say that's been mentioned, almost every year that pops up. But I think for now, and Jana is our director now, so I always talk with Arturo about it. he was fine with that, but we have a new director, and so we'll continue to look at that. But again, question we've received throughout the years, and but we're always going back to that decision, the RTOC decision, to make it at least a floor level for everybody at the start. So. And I don't want to chew into Ira's time, so I'm cognizant of that too. So I know we have to 10:30 today, Ira. Maybe Ira, do you want to go ahead and go, and then maybe we can follow? I can get back with the questions. Sorry, it's what do you think, Chelsea? What's the best?
It's fine.
Yeah, Randy, what you could do, most people are sending the chats to all panelists. So you could just reply back to people as you please. So if you want to do that while Ira's talking, you could just reply back to people in the chat box.
Okay, let me see, because I'm using my phone, so I don't know if I can.
Oh, okay. I don't.
Yeah.
Is
there a way? Is there a way you can I get the question? Can you download the questions for me after this session?
Yep,
And I can
download the questions for you afterwards, Randy.
Okay, I don't want to jump into Ira's time, so a lot of great discussion. Ira, I'll turn it over to you.
Hey, Randy, just one comment, if you don't mind. This is Jonna. Thanks. We did have Randy raised this issue, and we had a good long discussion about it yesterday afternoon late, and we'll continue. We really wanted to get your input, and we're open to, we want to be responsive to the RTOC's requests, and so just that's the point of this discussion as well, just to get that input. So we'll continue to seek that and make changes as we need to. So thank you very much.
So go ahead, Ira. I'm done.
Okay, I guess this is going to be my part. So good morning, everyone. For those of y'all who don't know who I am, my name is Ira Height. I've been a project officer here in Region 6 since 2008. Prior to that, I served as an environmental director in Southwest Oklahoma for the Wichita and affiliated tribes. So today I'm going to talk about ETEPs, and more specifically, I'm going to talk about ETEP updates. For those of y'all that are new and may not be too familiar with development of an ETEP and all the things that go into developing them and criteria and those sort of things, I would encourage you to reach out to your project officer, talk to them about ETEPs, and if you want to have a more detailed, in-depth discussion, I'd be certainly happy to do that with you or in conjunction with your project officer. I know today a lot of folks on here, I looked seeing the attendees, and a lot of y'all have had the ETEP training or worked with your project officer or myself, to develop your initial ETEPs a few years ago. So again, if there's any new people out there that want to have a more in-depth discussion on ETEPs, like I said, feel free to reach out to your project officer, and they can get a hold of me, and we can have another call or a meeting to discuss that, and I'll be more than happy to do that. So with that being said, we are in the process of working on developing a process for updating the ETEPs that we have in-house. All of our grantees that receive a GAP grant have an ETEP that accompanies that, and that is a requirement in GAP guidance. That guidance is currently being revised, updated, reviewed, depending on who you speak with. So I don't have any inside detail on exactly when that'll be updated, but we had a decision here in the region that we needed to start working on updates because most of our initial ETEPs that were submitted to us were around the 4 to 5 year mark, or about 3 years ago as well. We had deadlines we had to meet internally for Region 6, and so we worked with our grantees across the region. Everyone did a great job. We had a tiered approach on getting all those done. I know I worked on a lot of the early ones. Curtis Hicks did as well. Our other project officers, Jay and Mark, Selena and Yolanda Davis, who was here at the time, and of course, Randy and our management staff worked with us as well too. Then to get all those done, and we got every one of ours completed, with the help of the grantees and submitted. I think we were probably the first region, to have all of our. We had 60 something, about 60 something that we got done as well. So that was a great accomplishment for our region. We worked with the guidance. We developed a draft template for folks to use. That template was only a draft, it was only a guide. It didn't have to be used, but a majority of our grantees here in the region did. So we have ETEPs that, for the most part, probably 90% of them, have kind of a uniformity. And we did that so it would relieve some of the administrative, burden on the tribe to have to go out there and develop something from just the guidance, have a blank piece of paper. I'm a firm believer that if we can develop something, or we can have something on paper and someone to look at, then they can look at it and make their updates and changes to it, modify it, or they can say, this is not what we want to do. This is not how we want to do it. We'd rather do it this way. And I had some tribes that did that, and that was fine. They wanted to do it a different way, go a different approach, but as long as all the parameters that were in the guidance were included into the ETEP, we'd take it any way. We want to ensure maximum flexibility for all the ETEPs that we have out there. We know that all tribes, are unique and have their own particular situations, circumstances out there. So we provided the template, we gave that out to the grantees, and we worked on little updates as we went, because the first ones we did, we kept learning from each time we got a new ETEP in or had a new discussion with the grantee, went out there. Back then, we got to actually go out on site and visit with the grantees and talk to them and have in-depth discussions and hear their concerns and their issues and the priorities that they wanted to add and everything, and have those, good long discussions, back and forth. And so each time I did that, or one of our staff did that, we were able to learn a little more, update the ETEP and make it a little better and stuff. So once we got the last of the ETEPs done, probably about 2 to 3 years ago, then, it became, we were on a clock to, for 3 to 5 years is what the preferred method was on these ETEP ranges and things. So our first ETEP, and I'll take a look at this, was approved on July 7, 2015. And so this past July 2020, that ETEP, hit its 5-year period. They don't necessarily expire, so I don't want to use that type of word, but in the guidance, they request that we relook at the ETEP with the grantee, work together to make updates, and kind of just go through there more with kind of like a fine-tooth comb and everything. We do annual updates every year, or annual reviews, I should say, excuse me. And usually those annual reviews come in the form of our joint evaluation. So each of y'all probably are aware that we do a joint evaluation every year. And for most, I think, I can't speak for the other product officers, but at least for me, I have a question that I ask about the ETEP, and asking, if there's any updates that need to be made, any changes at that time and stuff. And usually there isn't, but occasionally there has come a couple of times where, tribe has decided we're looking at developing this type of media, and that's not in their ETEP. And so we begin to work on that. However, after the 5-year period, then we want to go ahead and take a more comprehensive look at the entire ETEP to ensure that it's not only meeting the needs of the grantee, but also that of EPA, because this is a joint document with both EPA and the tribes as well. So we want to have that discussion and go over that. So we began work on developing an updated draft of the template, that we had back in, the mid 2010, so around 2014, 2015 and stuff. And so that updated template that we will share with the tribes, that's still in review right now. We updated it, we sent it out to our divisions, they gave us comments, and so we're working through those right now. I spoke with Randy, and we anticipate that that template will be updated and ready for review by the grantees by June 1st of this year. So here in about a little over a month and a half, we'll be ready to share that and begin working on the updates that we've been receiving. And thanks to all the grantees that have submitted your updates, we appreciate those. And for those that have already submitted, we've begun the reviews of those and wanting to get those back out to y'all, as opposed to waiting for this update. And most of the updates that we done on our side internally for EPA was more focused on direct implementation work and the DI language that came from headquarters. And so we updated a lot of Section 3. If you're familiar with the template, and I can provide the template, the updated template, you'll see the gap guidance and the DI language that we have. Basically, if you're familiar with the ETEP, we updated Section 3, and a lot of that is the national DI language, basically talking about the different programs that EPA administers, the different federal programs that they're implementing here in Indian country. And so, I updated that. Well, we updated that, and then we also went back out to the regions. I mean, the regional divisions, the regional divisions, and ask them to take a look at their information too, and also the DI language as well too, so that way they can share with us. Because I think that Section 3 is a really good resource. And the reason I believe that is because, if you have an administrator or other staff or tribal members or leadership and ask what EPA does in a particular division, say the Clean Air Act or the Clean Water Act, you can look at that ETEP in that Section 3, and you can, go through there and show the different things that EPA, is supposed to be doing in Indian country. And then also you look at the regional portion of it, and that says this is what Region 6 is working on as well. And so it's a good resource, even if you're just using it, as a resource document, it's really good that way as well too. So we've looked at that, we've updated it, and then we also want to go back out to the tribes, let y'all take a look at that as well, and then update those ETEPs as you feel necessary. The other part of Section 3 is facility information. And so, the facilities that are on your tribal lands or maybe impacting your tribal lands, we want to look at that, see if there's anything that we can help you with to get those updated. Your project officer, your GAP project officer will be your point of contact for that. So any issues that you have, any concerns you have, reach out to your project officer. If they have any questions about the ETEP, the structure, the content, or anything like that, they'll talk with me and Randy, and we'll work with them as well, or yourself too, to make sure that everything is updated. Again, we want maximum, we're shooting for maximum flexibility. So if there's anything in the ETEP template that you see that, you don't necessarily want in there, or you want to change and stuff, we'll be more than happy to work with y'all, try to get those done and everything. So again, we're in the process of doing the quote unquote 5-year updates, review and update on there. The other thing that I think is significant that our office has discussed and felt that it was appropriate is that updated signatures, won't be required. They were never required, but updated signatures aren't necessary. So if you have an ETEP and you're ready to submit the update to us for review, then you don't necessarily have to get your tribal leader signature again if you got it prior. So you can go ahead and submit that to us. We'll work together and we'll get that updated, and then you'll be essentially quote unquote good for another 5 years. We'll do an annual review with you doing the joint evaluation process or when we're reviewing your GAP grant application. But the signature part of it won't be required any longer, much of the other plans you'll have, like solid waste management plans, things like that. We hope that, will relieve some of the administrative burden on yourself and also your administration and tribal leadership, especially if there's no really significant changes, to the document. So we hope that will help. Now new ETEPs, we would maybe like some kind of concurrence from tribal leadership, that this is a document that the tribe, has reviewed and is in favor of, that way ensure that the program, has the support of the grant of the tribal administration and leadership itself. But again, we have, only, I think maybe 2 to 3, tribes that don't come in for GAP funding that haven't had to do an ETEP yet. So we don't really think that'll be of a high impact for most of our tribes. Now, if you would like to continue to submit an ETEP, with a signature, that's fine as well too. We'll process that. We'll work with Randy, Gerardo, and Jonna to, on those signatures as well. But again, if you don't want to, if you just want to submit it without it, your project officer can definitely work with you on that. Make sure that, see if there's anything else that we need to touch on here. So let's see what time we got. So about 15 minutes here. So, okay. So, that was, in a nutshell, that's basically, the ETEP update. We're updating the template, which is basically done. We just need to do final reviews of comments that we received from the divisions. We'll have that template ready no later than June 1. I'm working on that with Randy and the rest of our office. And, we'll work with Gerardo and Jonna as well to get their concurrence on that. And signatures for updated ETEPs, are not necessary. If you feel comfortable submitting it without it to get the update in, then we can do that as well. Chelsea, I don't know if there's any comments that we need to address at the moment. We can always send those back. We can always give Randy some additional time on the GAP side of it. I know that was kind of a lot of information in a short amount of time, but again, I think a lot of our directors and staff here are pretty familiar with the ETEPs, what we use them for, and and what we've done in the past few years. I will say one thing I forgot to mention, and this is kind of a significant one, is that the reason we have these ETEPs, it's located in the GAP guidance, the guidebook, and we are in compliance with that fully. All of our GAP grants, all of our tribes that receive GAP grants, do have an approved ETEP, as I mentioned earlier, and it is, we do have to have those in place to make the award for a GAP grant, and so that's something that our region, that's a requirement for all of us, here across the EPA. So, that's why that is there. And also in our priorities, if you're working on implementation work, not implementation work, but working on developing capacity for a particular program, say air or water, and that's in the GAP grant, or solid waste, then it needs to be in your ETEP. If you are applying for a new GAP application and you say you're wanting to do some air type of work, and you don't have it in your current ETEP, well, we can go ahead and work with you on getting that application approved, your work plan approved, and then we can work on updating the ETEP later. We don't want to necessarily slow down the process of making an award and everything. So if you come in for a second year working on air, then we need to make sure that we have that in there as well. So that's where those updates, on a yearly might come into play, as opposed to waiting to the 5-year period. But we do have that flexibility of making sure that we can get the application awarded, and then we'll work with you on updating the ETEP prior to applying for the second year. So, that's one of the main things I just want to make sure that everyone's aware of. So in case, you get a comment from your project officer saying that we need to look at the ETEP because this is missing, that's usually the most common reason, is when we review grant applications, we'll notice that there's some work in there that isn't in the ETEP. And so we'll work with you on that to get that updated at a later time, but ensure that we get your grant awarded. So I don't know if I can take a look and see if there's any comments or anything that we need to address real quick, but I'll look here. I see I see a question from Tammy Balone. I'm one of those with an ETEP close to 4 years old. So what we'll do, Tammy, on those is, again, we'll have that updated template done, and your project officer, will be talking with you during the joint evaluation usually, or at some designated point. I'm not sure. I don't think all project officers do it at the same exact time, but they should reach out. Your project officer should reach out to you, let you know that your ETEP is going to hit this 5-year mark at a certain point in time, and then we will and then we'll work with you on what type of updates you want to do. So, again, we want maximum flexibility. You might want, after 4 years, you may want to change your ETEP up quite a bit, and we can certainly work with you. There are several things that we have to have in an ETEP, and so we'll ensure that y'all know that. Like I said, we can share the GAP guidance and those sections on ETEPs, what information is essentially required to be in there. And so we'll work with you to get that updated. If it goes past the time period of the 5 years, we can certainly, it doesn't expire. You won't lose any GAP grant funding, or your application won't be held or anything like that, but we do want to try to keep those on a schedule as close as we can. We want to ensure that we're in compliance, and we want to make sure that all of our GAP grants, are eligible for it. And, we don't want anything to hinder that. That's why we worked so hard in the beginning to make sure that all of our GAP grantees, have their ETEPs in place to ensure that, GAP funding, wouldn't be interrupted at all. Again, one from Tammy, updated ETEP format we should follow. There's not a format that you have to follow. Like I said, in the guidebook and the guidance, there is certain things that AIO, requests be in there in your ETEP. And so that's really the only thing that you have to do. The template was simply developed as a resource, for the grantees to use to hopefully expedite the development of them and getting those submitted and concurred upon by Region 6. So that way to maintain the GAP eligibility. So there's no particular format that has to be followed, but, like I said, if you want to use the one that we provide you, we're certainly fine with that. If you want to develop one on your own, we will do everything we can to help you with that as well. I see Jennifer Himanoki, she asked, will we need a new signature if leadership changed? I think that's an internal call. We haven't talked about that internally, but that's a good question. I'll talk with Randy about that, and John and Gerardo, and see if that, if that precipitates any necessary change of it. My personal thoughts, it would be no. The leadership, was, the leadership signed it, and so from the tribe, and if the tribe feels it's appropriate for a new leader to do a due document, put a new signature, their own signature on there, then, I know we would respect that. However, if a leader came in and said, well, those that were signed prior to us, those are still in effect, and, and so unless we want to change them, those are still good. I'm sure our office would respect that as well too, and everything. But we'll certainly talk about it. I'll bring it up, and we'll see. I'll see if there's any more gap season. If I have
And
any-
I'm sharing my screen from the chat as
Okay.
well. So it looks like right now, like Polly's was right before Jennifer's.
Okay, all right, yeah, I was looking on my chat, but I'll look at this screen too. Okay, so it says from Polly from Caddos. I review my ETAP annually during GAP grant season. I have changes. I make note of it. GAP grant issue listed in task annually the way I can actually make. Yes, and that's fine. And that's why, that's one of the things that we have in the guidance is that, the tribe and the pride officer should review those grants. I mean, should review the ETAP on an annual basis to ensure that it's a document that is working for the grantee, and making any necessary changes. So, so that's great. I'm glad that's taken part and taken place or anything. That should always be taking place between the grantee and the project officer. So I'm glad to hear that's happening for you. And yes, anytime that you want to make a change as a grantee to your ETAP and make an update, that's certainly encouraged, and we will work with you on that. And, we want to have the most useful document possible for you. Let's see, Carmen, just suggesting I'm having a GAP grant application. Okay, this is a different one off of ETAP. So I think that was only ones on ETAP. So I don't see any other questions. If not, I think, see, we have about 8 minutes left. So Randy, if you want to take it back over and finish on GAP or our office update, I'm fine with that. And if anyone has any questions about ETAPs and you would like to contact me or talk about it directly, you can reach me. My email is height.ira@epa.gov, and you can contact me there. And then, like I said, we'll be sending some more information out, or you can contact your project officer to talk about it. Thank you all for y'all's time, for being on this, and I look forward to the rest of the summit. And Randy, if you want to take it back over, or if we want to close down, it's up to you.
Hey, Ira, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, if you don't mind, folks that sent comments in when I was presenting, I took screenshots off my cell phone, so I'll respond back to you on those. So I captured those comments. I know we probably won't be able to get feedback on this on here, but we'll try. I did have a couple more questions on my slide I can get to. So we are, we're always looking at, again, for process improvement. How we have our submittal date. We work with our water folks and Anjane to look at calendar dates of when we should get proposals or applications in, and we try to space out a couple weeks. Sometimes we can't do it, but we try to give, like, if GAP comes in, then air might come in 2 weeks later, and then water. Would folks be okay with maybe us starting like in early January? I mean, we try to give the GAP application like in February, so we know people are coming off the holidays. Would folks mind us starting maybe mid-January? Some feedback on that. The award notifications. So the award notifications are sent out, after the process is done. Is that getting to the folks that need it, your folks? Is there anything we should improve on in the award notifications? And then multi-year grants. As I mentioned, we had 6 multi-year grants that came in this year. We had 6 last year. So I think we have about 12 grantees on multi-years. I guess for the folks that aren't on multi-years, is there anything that we can do to make you more receptive to multi-year grants? Quite honestly, I thought that with the surplus we call, we've been talking about, I actually thought maybe we might have 2 or 3 multi-years that would have come in to kind of expend those funds, but it didn't happen. So any feedback on if you're not in a multi-year, and why is there something that might be an obstacle for you with a multi-year grant? Again, if you want to send it now, I can try to capture that. Or if you just want to send me an email, be appreciated on the feedback too. So that's all I got. Let me just see if I can see if there's any feedback yet, Chelsea, on those questions. But we can go ahead and again send any feedback you have on all these sessions to Ira and I, and we'll get answers out, and we'll try to get answers out to everybody too on the questions. And we'll also look for something on IDC, because I think it sounded like it was a good idea. So that is all I have, Chelsea.
Okay, Randy, what I'll do is I'll send you over these chats, and that way you can just answer them as they come in. You did get one last one from Dino. Moving up grant submittal date will conflict with national competitive grants. So that's one last question that you got.
Thanks. Great feedback. We'll put that down.
So I'll get this over to you, and other than that, if you guys don't have anything else, thank you guys for your patience, and we appreciate you guys for joining this morning.
One last word for me, I should have. So I would really encourage folks to attend the grants management section on the 29th. The OIG did an audit of Region 1 and Region 5 GAP grants, and after this session, I'll send this out to everybody. I would like to see if we could have a good discussion on those on the audit. I know I'm talking with Chris Watkins, and we're going to meet internally next week to see what lessons learned from my team and his team on that. But I really would like folks to join us at a plug for the 29th, 2 weeks from today. And I will send that audit out because there were some things to note that I saw that we're not doing that. So we're, that the OIG noted. And the big thing was they made a couple of tribes pay back money, which we definitely don't want to happen. So again, a plug for the grants management session on the 29th. Thank you.
Thanks, Randy. And just so everyone knows, our next session starts at 11. It's multimedia projects. If you guys want to join that, you're more than welcome to register. And other than that, thank you guys.
Thanks, Chelsea.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Chelsea. Thank you, everyone.